Conspiracy theorist, in fact I still am as of today. Right-wing nut job, racist, among many other labels. But I kept going because I knew how important the issues that we're facing and the cause of those issues, how important it is that people understand them. Our population in Canada is very ignorant to the bigger picture. In some part, no fault of their own. But there is a part that there is some responsibility. Somebody asked me earlier, what questions do I get asked the most? And I said, unfortunately, I get asked all the wrong questions because most people don't know what questions to ask. So I really started thinking and trying to understand what's the best approach to take to reach people. That's been a struggle for as long as I've been involved. And then, about 3 years ago, there was a movement started in France called the Eleventh Movement. And it was basically in response to their fuel tax. And then that movement migrated to Canada based on our government's imposition of the carbon tax along with the Migrant Compact. So I got involved with that movement as a platform to try to reach people with the information, not only the people that are in the general community, but people within that movement. Because it's not just about a carbon tax, it's not just about a migrant compact. It's about many, many, many different agreements, compacts, treaties at the UN that our country has committed to. So I got involved. Then there was a convoy, United We Roll convoy, organized by Glenn Carrott that went to Ottawa. I joined that as another platform. Carried on with the rallies and the protests with the LFS. And around the same time that was happening, there was some political upheaval in our country where Maxime Bernie left the Conservative Party because they are intellectually and morally corrupt and created his own party. So I looked at it, I was a little bit skeptical at first. I'm skeptical of anybody that is in or comes from the establishment. But I investigated what Maxime Bernie stands for and what he created the party around. And it was around 4 core values: freedom, responsibility, respect, and fairness. And I looked at some of his history and some of what he's done. And I spoke with him, and I decided, okay, well, here's another platform that I can use to educate people about the globalist agenda. So I jumped on board and I helped build the party to the point where I ended up running as a candidate in the 2019 election. What became extremely apparent was how ignorant the population is to the issues. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, it's just a fact. Because most people listen to what they're told by the mainstream media, which is all propaganda at this point. A media that's paid by our government to forward an agenda. A media, in the bigger picture, that is part of the United Nations Media Compact, where the media companies have agreed to forward the narrative of the globalist agenda. So it's complete and 100% propaganda. So after the election, I decided that I needed to create a platform. So I created what we call the Forum for Canadian Sovereignty. Myself and a good friend of mine, Professor Salim Mansour, who's a history and political science professor out of Western University. And I modeled it after a guy by the name of Thierry Baudet, who's from the Netherlands. And what he did is he created an organization called Forum for Democracy in the Netherlands. And his model was basically to do town halls throughout the Netherlands discussing the globalist agenda. And it became very successful, so successful that he created a political party around that model and after spreading the information. And now he's in Parliament talking about exactly these things, which is incredibly powerful. And him and a few of his party members are the only ones speaking to this. So that's what I've modeled the Forum for Canadian Sovereignty after. That's our mission, to get the message to the masses. And to this point, when we started, our original model was to do a national speaking tour with some recognizable names, and then from each one of those tour dates, recruit people that could do the same thing at a local level, in a provincial level. But then COVID hit, and that dashed our model. So we got heavily involved in the Freedom Rally movement. We supported a lot of the movements, a lot of the rallies, and used that as a mechanism, as another platform. But there's a limit to what our rallies and protests can accomplish. There's a lot of folks in Canada, it's not in their DNA to go to a rally. It's not in their DNA to hold a sign. It's not in their DNA to go to a protest. But they still know something's wrong, and they still want to gather as a community. So I decided at that point that as important as the rallies and protests are, we need something else. So we decided to flip my model from top-down national tour to grassroots and start from the bottom. So we created some town hall events in Saskatchewan. We actually started calling them the Town Hall Underground because we were at that point under heavy restrictions, and I wanted people to be triggered by that name. That here we are at that time in Saskatchewan at a place where we have to hide from the government and the police to come together and exchange ideas. What a horrible, horrible thought that is and was to me in Canada, in Saskatchewan, where we had to hide to come together. And so we did that, and each one that we did spawned 2 to 3 more. Because what happens is you speak to the people at a town hall, they go back to their communities and they tell everybody about what they heard, and then all of a sudden everybody else wants to attend one. So it's growing. And in the last 3.5 months, myself and RB Ham have put on 25,000 kilometers between Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. And it's growing, and the momentum, you can feel it. And so that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about that. RB Ham is my speaking partner. He's a recovering socialist. I refer to him as my left-hand man. But it's an example of how we need to come together. Because this is bigger than the divide the government has created. This is bigger than left and right. It's bigger than blue and red. It's bigger than gay or straight, white or black. All of these divisions that they've created for us so we can argue and stay divided. The importance of us to come together is key and to unite around the values I spoke about. So RB recognized that, I recognized that, and we came together to form this town hall series and event. And so RB will be discussing COVID and all of the issues surrounding COVID, that essentially, when you accumulate all of the issues, there's no way to come to a conclusion other than something's very wrong. But there's an important question that needs to be asked after that, and I will ask that question, and then I'll give you my presentation. The question is why? Why would the government do this? And this is how important context is to the masses. Because if they don't have context to why the government would do this for a virus or an illness that has a 99.96% survivability, and 99.7% recoverability. Why would the government destroy our families, destroy our lives, destroy our livelihoods and businesses for that? It doesn't make sense to people until they have context. So that's the whole idea around this town hall, is to talk and identify the issues of COVID and relate them to the bigger picture and how they use COVID to socially engineer our communities, our country, and really Western civilization. So we usually start with our beat, and then I come in and do mine, but today we're going to switch it up a little bit. We have a special guest. The People's Party represents the only national federal party that opposes globalism and wants to take care of Canada first. That's not to suggest we don't want to be a responsible entity or nation state within the greater global community, but we understand, and we're the only party that does, that in order for us to be able to do that, we have to look after ourselves first. That should be the priority. And our establishment has grossly forgotten about those values and what Canada represents. Our next speaker, the leader of the People's Party, understands that. So without further ado, Maxime Bernie.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy, very pleased to be with you here today. And you are here because, like me, you know that without freedom, there's no human dignity. There's no equality of rights. There's no prosperity. And you know also that our freedoms are under attack. Like Mark just said, by the UN. By the UN with their migration compact. They want to be sure that every country will open their borders to welcome everybody. But for us, we don't believe in mass immigration. We believe that it is a privilege to be Canadian. And yes, we are open for immigration, but sustainable immigration. We want people that will come here and share our Canadian values and believe that there's equality of rights between men and women, equality under the law. They must believe in Western civilization values because every culture are not equal. That's the reality. The Western civilization values are the one that we believe in because we believe in individual freedom and personal responsibility. So we don't want the UN to tell us and dictate to us our immigration policy. We don't want also the UN to tell us that we must tax you, we must regulate you to fight climate change. We won't sign the Paris Accord. We are the only political party, national political party against the Paris Accord. But we are for the environment. That's different. The climate is always changing, and it will always change.
Yeah.
But the environment is a shared jurisdiction with provincial governments. So they can have climate change policy at the provincial level, but us at the federal level, we won't impose any carbon tax, we won't impose any new regulations, but we will be sure that we'll have a clear environment. We must and we can also being sure that we'll have clear lakes, clear rivers, and there's a lot of things that we can do for the environment at the federal level. So our way of life, our Western civilization values are under attack by the UN, but also under attack by the Trudeau government with the COVID-19 hysteria. COVID-19, that's a virus. The virus is there. But for the first time in the humanity, we shut down our society. We locked down our society to fight a virus for the first time. That was not the first virus, COVID-19. And the Trudeau government decided that every business is not essential, that you don't have the right anymore to go to your church if you want to practice your religion. You cannot also go to school if you're a kid or a child or a student. They lock down and close our society to fight a virus. And because what? Because they believe in a socialist government that will tell you what to do in your day-to-day life. They believe in more control. We at the People's Party of Canada don't believe in that. We believe in people. We have faith that you have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make your own decisions and determine your own destiny.
Yeah.
So under attack by the Trudeau government, with mass immigration, with the Paris Accord, with COVID-19, with also the non-respect of our Constitution. We have a great Constitution, but the Trudeau government said that it's not important. What is he doing? He's interfering in provincial jurisdiction. We believe that the best government is the government near you. We believe that you don't need a government in Ottawa that will tell you what to do, like the Trudeau government is doing right now on a lot of subjects. Like the environment, yes, but like also pipelines, the equalization formula. They are telling you and are telling us that we cannot build pipeline in this country, that we must listen to every special interest group, and everybody must have a say, must be able to express their point of view. But it's under the federal jurisdiction to build pipeline, and you can use the Constitution, Section 9210. And actually, since the Confederation, since 1867, we use that section, we, the federal government, more than 100 times to build this country, coast to coast, to build national infrastructures coast to coast. And we need to do that. We need to be able to build pipelines in this country because we know that it's safer for the environment and safer for the population to transport oil and gas by pipelines than by train or trucks. We know that. In Quebec, we had a huge tragedy in Lac Mégantic, just near my former riding in Beauce. A huge tragedy. So that's what we believe in People Party. We believe that we must respect the Constitution, respect the people, respect taxpayers. And we created that party based on 4 principles, like Mark said: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with these principles. And I can tell you, we won't do any compromise with our principle. And also, our way of life, our freedoms are under attack by the Bank of Canada. Why? Because the Bank of Canada is bailing right now, financing the federal government. The Bank of Canada, by printing money out of thin air, is helping the Trudeau government to do more and more deficit. That's why the Trudeau government was able to do a deficit of more than $340 billion. That's irresponsible. The Bank of Canada financed that deficit, and they bail out the government. But who will bail out the Bank of Canada? Us. Yes, us. Not by a new tax, because the Trudeau government won't impose you a tax. He knows that the tax is not so popular, so he can do these huge deficit without imposing new tax. But the real tax is the Trudeau's inflation tax. When you created money out of thin air, and you cannot create wealth with that, you're creating inflation. And you know, it's not our children and the future generations that will pay for these huge deficit and irresponsible deficit. It's not the future generation. It is us right now by the inflation tax. If you you do your grocery right now, you know that there's about 4 or 5% inflation, but that inflation will be everywhere in a couple of months. When you have inflation, it's a hidden tax. The federal government and the Trudeau government is not taking your money in your pockets by taxing you. Trudeau is saying to you, keep your own money, but you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services with that money. We call that a depreciation of your money, inflation, lower standard of living, and everybody is poor because you may have the same amount of money in your pockets, but you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services. Everybody will be poor, and we have that right now when you do your grocery. So that's the Trudeau inflation tax. So we are bailing out the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Canada bail out the government. So in the end, we are responsible for all that. So that's why our Western civilization values are under attack. But our freedom also is under attack. I said by the UN, by international organization, by the Trudeau government, by the Bank of Canada. I forgot one organization, one political party, the Conservative Party of Canada. It's sad. They have the name. They are telling us that they are conservative, but they are not conservative anymore. Why? Because their only goal is to be in government, is to be in power. And because we are in a socialist era right now, that can be that for 5, 10 years, they want to have the support of the majority of the population. We didn't have any opposition in Ottawa against the lockdowns, draconian lockdowns, and all these draconian measures. We didn't have any opposition. The Conservative Party of Canada didn't speak against that. And same thing at the provincial level. You didn't have any opposition about all the COVID-19 hysteria. Why? Because when you are in the opposition, when you are the leader of the opposition, your goal is to be in government. And now you have about 65 and 75% of the population that agree with that. So you want to have their support. So that's why you don't speak against lockdowns. I'll give you an example. We had curfew in Montreal, in Quebec. I was not able to go outside from 8 o'clock p.m. until 5 o'clock a.m. That for 6 months. And when we had these curfew, the population in Quebec were asking for more. Why? Because of the fear. Because of the propaganda from the government. The Quebec government spent $135 million last year only in ad for COVID-19. It is more than all the other provinces together. So that was very efficient. And our Western civilization values also are under attack by the mainstream media, by the wokes, by the radical leftists. Why? Because they're telling us that we are racist, that Canada is a very bad country. You cannot celebrate the 1st of July. Shame on you, Canadians. And the mainstream media and the leftists and the wokes, they believe in political correctness. We don't believe in that. There's no taboo subject for us. At the People's Party, we have strong, bold policies and reform that we need to do to gain back our country, that we need to do for having a smaller government in Ottawa that will respect taxpayers and respect the Constitution for more freedom. But also under attack by the woke, by the Trudeau government. Why? Because you're not Canadian anymore with the leftists. You're a black Canadian or a white Canadian or an Asian Canadian or a Christian Canadian or a gay Canadian or a lesbian Canadian. They try to put us in little boxes, and like that, they will pander to them with new policies. Can you believe that we have in Canada right now a program for black entrepreneurs? If you're white, no, you cannot apply. For black entrepreneurs, you know, we believe, like Martin Luther King Jr., that we must judge you by your character, but not by the color of your skin. That's what the federal government is doing right now.
Yeah.
They put you in a corner in a little box, and they will give you some programs, or they will give you what you want, but you don't create a strong country with that. And for Trudeau, more and more multiculturalism is good. For us, it is bad. We must not promote what divides us, but we must promote what unites us. We must speak about our culture, our heritage, our story as a country, what unites us. But Trudeau is doing the opposite with his extreme multiculturalist policies. So, for him, it's easy and easier to look at you as a new Chinese Canadian and giving you what you want. For us, you are a Canadian, and that's it. We don't try to put you in a box like they're doing. That's not Western civilization values. That's not who we are. You know, I'll give you an anecdote, a real anecdote. At the last campaign in 2019, we did that campaign, and a journalist called my people over there and said, we have a question that we are asking to every political party. How many black candidates do you have? How many white candidates do you have? How many gay candidates do you have? How many LGBT do you have? And so my director of communication did not answer. But the journalist came back 2 days after that and said, you know, you're the only political party that did not answer our questions, and I'm ready to publish my paper on that. So can you giving me your answer on all these questions? And we said, no. And she said, why? And we said, because we don't know and we don't want to know.
We don't care.
It's not important for us. If you're a candidate for the People's Party of Canada, you must believe in this country, you must believe in Canadian values, you must believe in freedom, in fairness, in equality. That's what we want from our candidates. We don't ask these kind of questions. So, Canada is a great country. And I was on the Hill the 1st of July, and we celebrated the 1st of July together. But I think we were about 1,000 people on the Hill. The mainstream media were there, but you didn't see that in the mainstream media, that people were proud to be Canadians and saying that our country is not a racist country. You didn't see that. So that's why I'm traveling across the country and speaking about our values, and I hope that you will support the People's Party of Canada. And if you don't like what I'm saying, it's okay. You can vote for another political party. I hope you'll agree with me. And if you want to know more, you can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. But the most important for us is you. I believe that you need our voice. And we need your vote. And all together, we can change things. We don't need to be in government. I'll tell you, maybe I won't be prime minister after the next election. It's okay. That's not so important for me. The most important is our ideas. Our ideas will win. I can tell you that. They will win.
Yeah.
But I don't know when. I don't know when. But if we are able to elect a couple of our candidates, we'll be able to do this debate. We'll be able to be part of the debate in Ottawa, in the House, and that will force the mainstream media to speak about us.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge majority of Canadians out there that they don't know. They don't know that the PPC exists. They don't know because the mainstream media is not talking about us. But some of them know that we exist and they are looking at us. And we must tell them that you must have the courage of your conviction. You must be able to speak openly, with passion and with conviction, to your friends, to your family, to your colleagues, to your neighbors, about what you believe in. You know, when I was in Manitoba,